The Backdated, Episode 6, The Ghost in the Ledger, Chicago, this year. A contractor gutting the basement of a building slated for renovation finds something behind a false wall that shouldn't be there. A metal box, rusted shut, sitting in a cavity that was bricked over decades ago. Inside it, water-damaged, but still legible in places, is a ledger. The date on the inside cover reads 1924. What's written on its pages doesn't match anything the government ever recorded about one of the most notorious bootlegging operations in American history. This is The Backdated. This is the story of the ghost in the ledger. To understand why a single accounting book could matter this much, you have to understand what Chicago was in 1924. Prohibition had been the law of the land for 4 years, and it had done exactly the opposite of what it promised. Instead of drying the country out, it had handed an entire industry over to organized crime. Bootlegging syndicates were moving staggering amounts of liquor through the city, running speakeasies, distilleries, and distribution networks that stretched from Canada down through Michigan and into every corner of Chicago. It was, by any measure, one of the most profitable criminal enterprises in American history, and almost none of it was ever properly written down, at least not anywhere the government could get its hands on. Chicago in the 1920s wasn't just a city with a crime problem. It was, in many ways, a city being run alongside two parallel economies at once, the legitimate one that showed up in tax rolls and business licenses, and a shadow economy of liquor, gambling, and protection payments that dwarfed it in places, moving through police precincts, city hall, and neighborhood storefronts without ever touching an official ledger. Corruption wasn't an occasional scandal. It was closer to infrastructure, a working relationship between organized crime and parts of city government that both sides depended on to keep functioning. That's what made the discovery of this ledger so unusual. Bootlegging operations of this era ran almost entirely on cash and word of mouth, precisely so there would be no paper trail for federal agents to follow. A detailed, dated internal ledger, hidden behind a false wall rather than destroyed, is close to unheard of. Someone went to real trouble to keep this record intact instead of burning it, and then went to even more trouble to make sure nobody would ever find it. Think about what that decision actually required. Burning a ledger takes minutes. Building a false wall, hiding a metal box inside it, and sealing it up well enough that it stays undisturbed for a century takes planning, materials, and time. The kind of effort you only put in if you believe you might need that record again someday, or if you simply can't bring yourself to destroy the only proof of exactly how much money passed through your hands. Whoever did this wasn't hiding evidence from a raid that might happen next week. They were hiding it for good. The ledger itself is a strange object to look at. Water damage has eaten through parts of the paper, smudging entire columns beyond recovery. But other pages survived clearly enough for forensic document examiners and historians to start reconstructing what's actually in it. Entries for liquor shipments, payouts to what appear to be distribution routes, and a running tally of income that syndicate insiders were apparently tracking for themselves, separate from anything ever reported to authorities. And that's where the numbers stop making sense. When researchers laid the ledger's internal figures next to the official record, the ones federal investigators used at the time to estimate the syndicate's income for tax purposes, the two versions of reality didn't match. Officially reported income, thin as it already was supposed to roughly track the syndicate's visible spending. But it didn't come close to accounting for what these operations were actually running: fleets of vehicles, real estate holdings, payoffs to police and city officials, and the kind of luxury spending that was hard to hide even in a city as corrupt as Chicago was at the time. Investigators had always assumed the visible spending outpaced the official numbers. What the ledger suggests is a specific, previously undocumented gap, an amount of income that seems to have simply never existed anywhere in the paperwork the government was working from. That gap, once historians and forensic accountants started running the numbers, comes out to somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million. In 1924 terms, that is not a rounding error. It's a fortune, and it never once appears in an IRS filing, a police seizure report, or any of the court records connected to the era's biggest bootlegging prosecutions. $8 million that syndicate accountants apparently knew about, tracked carefully enough to write down, and then made disappear so completely that it left no trace anywhere in the official record for over a century. So where did it go? This is the part of the story where the ledger raises more questions than it answers. There are a few working theories, and none of them are confirmed. One possibility is that the money was simply laundered through legitimate-looking businesses, fast enough that it left the underworld's books before it ever touched anything the government could trace. Restaurants, laundries, real estate holdings, the standard playbook for making dirty money look clean. Another is that a portion of it was paid out directly to police and city officials as protection money, cash that never needed to appear on any ledger because it was designed to guarantee that no one would ever come looking. And a third, more speculative theory is that some of it was physically hidden the old-fashioned way, buried, stashed in walls, tucked into safety deposit boxes under false names, the same pattern historians have long suspected happened with other missing fortunes from this exact era. Each theory has a problem. If the money was laundered, there should be some trace of it in the growth of legitimate businesses connected to known syndicate associates, and researchers combing property and business records from the period haven't yet found spending that fully accounts for $8 million. If it went entirely to bribes, that would represent an almost unbelievable scale of institutional corruption, larger than even the most cynical estimates historians have made about how deeply compromised city government was at the time. And if it was physically buried or stashed, then it may simply still be out there somewhere. The same open-ended possibility that has fueled a century of rumors about other gangland fortunes from this exact period that were never recovered. What makes the ledger valuable isn't that it answers the question, it's that it proves the question was real. For 100 years, the gap between what bootlegging syndicates were known to be spending and what they officially reported earning was treated as an estimate, an assumption historians made based on lifestyle and circumstantial evidence. This ledger is the first piece of physical evidence suggesting that the syndicate itself was keeping a separate, honest set of books, one that knew exactly how large that gap really was, down to a specific figure. Researchers are now working through the legible portions page by page, cross-referencing names, dates, and route numbers against known associates, known properties, and known court testimony from federal prosecutions of the era. It's slow work. Water damage doesn't just erase ink, it can distort handwriting enough to make names ambiguous, turning what should be a straightforward identification into another layer of guesswork. Every entry that survives has to be checked and rechecked before anyone is willing to attach a name to it. This kind of document reconstruction usually involves several passes with several different tools, raking light photography to catch faint impressions left in the paper even where ink has washed away, multispectral imaging to pick up pigment that's invisible under normal light, and old-fashioned archival comparison, laying each recovered word or number next to known signatures, known handwriting samples, and known figures from court records to see what lines up. It's the same toolkit historians use to recover damaged wartime letters or faded property deeds, applied here to a criminal organization's private accounting. There's something fitting about how this ledger surfaced. It wasn't found by federal investigators with a warrant or by historians combing through an archive. It turned up because a wall came down during an ordinary renovation in an ordinary building in a city where an entire economy once ran on money nobody was supposed to be able to trace. For 100 years, the wall did exactly what it was built to do. It kept the accounting hidden. It just didn't keep it hidden forever. $8 million is still missing. It may stay that way. Money moved and hidden this carefully in 1924 was, by design, meant to never be found again, laundered into clean businesses, paid out as bribes that left no receipt, or simply buried somewhere nobody living remembers anymore. But for the first time in a century, there's a physical document confirming that the money was real, that someone was tracking it carefully, and that somewhere along the way, it vanished on purpose, 100 years is long enough for every person who could have explained this ledger in plain terms to be gone. The bookkeeper who wrote it, the syndicate boss who ordered it hidden, the bricklayer who sealed the wall, none of them are alive to answer the obvious question of where the money actually went. What's left is a water-damaged book with a decade-old date on the cover, a set of numbers that refuse to add up to the official story, and a city that spent 100 years building and rebuilding on top of secrets it never knew it was standing on. If you want us to dig into another case like this one, let us know in the comments. This has been The Backdated.